What up, guys? It's DrVic here, and I want to share with you an awesome video about each week. I'm going to be sharing one video a week about something about mindset, universal laws, concepts, tips, tricks, the whole nine yards, to just help empower you to help make that shift in your life, to level up so you can experience more out of life and really achieve what it is that you desire to achieve in this lifetime. This week's tip is all about the concept of fear, right? The coronavirus is blaring all over globally. It's freaking out businesses. It's interfering with travel, global markets, all these different things, right? This hysteria of fear. This happens often because individuals win and thrive off individuals' fear. The reason why this is because in your mind, you have a part of it, there's two aspects, right? Everything's black and white. So it's either you're firing this part of the brain or you're firing that part of the brain, right? And so when you get into a fear state, all of a sudden, where your critical thinking, which is up here, you're planning, seeing in the future, making decisions and how it's going to interrupt and play in your plans of the future planning, all these types of, it's all this logical sequencing thinking, all this different type of stuff. It's called your prefrontal cortex. And what happens is when you get in a state of fear, what ends up happening is you feed back into this part of the brain known as the temporal lobe, more specifically the amygdala, which is the fear, anxiety, and worry centers. And what ends up happening is when you start to feed that center, critical thinking out the door. It doesn't exist anymore. And so then all of a sudden you go into part of your reptilian brain, which is a survival instinctual brain. And what you're looking for is the quickest and fastest solution to the fear that you have. Now, this is great if you have a lion in front of you, or you're facing a bear, or you have wolves around you. This is beautiful. But when it comes to something like the coronavirus, your thinking goes out the door and you let the media, whatever's on the TV, program you and give you solutions. Okay, does that kind of make sense a little bit? You're easily programmed that way because every time you get into a state of fear, you are programmed more and more, and your critical thinking goes out the door. You're not judging what's coming in, you're just taking what comes in. And then all of a sudden, now the choices that you make from that is going to lead into a direction. You're easily more persuaded into a direction because they control what you're thinking and how you're feeding the brain. This is why it's very critical to have guardians on your brain blocking this stuff. And then the way I do things is I look at the numbers or stuff. Is it really a threat? Is it really something? Anything in life. You can take this procedure in any aspect of your life, and what you can do is it'll help, first of all, diminish the fear factor and shift your brain back into that prefrontal cortex so you can get more critical thinking. So the first thing that I would recommend doing is take a minimum of 10 massive deep breaths. And I'm talking getting into the gut and really expanding that diaphragm. And when you start to do that, you're slightly stimulating a nerve from the brain called the vagus nerve. And what that does is it flips the switch for you to go from temporal to frontal. And then you're not as reactive and you can be more critical thinking. So 10 deep breaths, okay? After you do that, now you start asking questions. What's logical questions? Because logic, when you think from a logical standpoint, you don't let emotions get in the way. So you can't go back into that fear state. You're not going to allow that. So you want to be crystal clear on what it is. Look at numbers. Look at percentages. If it's in business and you're kind of struggling from a financial standpoint, you look at what's the hard fact realities of the business and where are you at. You take your 10 deep breaths and then you start analyzing and looking from a logical standpoint, and then you ask questions, what are things that I can do right here, right now to make those changes? What are things that I am in control of that I can make shifts and changes in my life when it comes to XYZ? Maybe the coronavirus, maybe a business thing, maybe a life thing, maybe a relationship thing, whatever that is. But it allows you to get more critical thinking and allows you to stay more in the frontal part of your lobe. And the more you do this over time, the more you create neurology to attach to that frontal lobe, the more you make the frontal lobe a little bigger and thicker, which makes it more predominant. So then you don't get so caught up in being so reactive. And then you're not letting others, media and those things, control you, or the leaders of your profession, or the things that you do, or your family or friends. You start to be more critical thinking for yourself. And when you can do that, this really creates a transformation in your life. It's going to transcend all throughout every aspect of your life. So the rule tip that I want to share with you is no matter whatever state you get in a worry and a fear, anxiety kicks in, a minimum of 10 deep breaths. If you have anxiety, I always say to keep taking deep breaths till it's not there anymore, right? Because sometimes you just need more stimulation for the vagus nerve to really make that shift. Then from there, you start to get into more logical thinking. What's the reality of all this? What's the real numbers? And get away from the noise and do your own research. So like the coronavirus, right? 2% of the people right now in the world who contract the virus end up dying. Now, what I always say is I look and I go, okay, how many of those people were immune compromised? You don't get that information. But most of the time, it's the individuals who are immune compromised. If it's in the business and you're struggling financially, right? Or you're in a rut, you don't know how to get out. It's looking at reality factors. What are little things that you can do to start breaking away? And the cool thing about taking deep breaths, it gets you back in the present moment. And that's the power behind it. And then from there, you just go from a logical standpoint, which you start to stimulate more of that critical thinking. And now you can start seeing and projecting into the future a little bit. In the beginning, you may not get these big aha moments because this is your first time doing it. But as you continue, like neurology is all about consistency, redundancy, the same thing over and over again. The more you start doing this, the more you start training the brain and wiring it. And then what ends up happening is you will train yourself. Anytime fear, anxiety, or worry kicks in, you're automatically going to take 10 deep breaths. That's how powerful this is, guys. So don't let the fears of coronavirus take advantage of you. As being a chiropractor, I can tell you that when you look at the numbers, this is not something to worry about. It's what, 2% of people die from this. And the number of people of death, and don't get me wrong, it's sad to see people die, right? We're all going to die of something too. When you look at the numbers of heart disease and cancer and diabetes and Alzheimer's and car accidents and people dying from medical errors or just NSAIDs, non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs, when you start looking at all those numbers, it's really overwhelming. I don't know why we're not putting energy into those things rather than something that's so minute. But long story short, you calm the mind, and the more you train yourself this way is how you can create that transformation. I hope this helps. Let me know what you think. Throw some comments below. Let me know what you think. What are some strategies? Maybe breathing isn't the one that you like, or maybe there's something else that you use. Share it below in the comments. Love to hear about it. As always, I appreciate you checking out the video. Until next time, I'll see y'all next week.